Here's a good tip for life. If you see some questionable sorbet, don't eat it. I'm the Classical Nerd, and today we're talking about Guillaume Lekeu. Lekeu was born in January 1870 in an eastern Belgian village. He received early musical education from a local brass band director in Belgium before he moved with his family to western France when he was 9. Within 6 years, he was seriously composing. What's strange about Lekeu is that his style seemingly emerged fully formed. While many composers take years to find their personal style, he just started writing music in that style, setting out an artistic philosophy that prized originality above all else when he was just 17 years old. He had been trained on the piano, but he also studied the violin and the cello, and this helped him write very idiomatic string parts, which was really a great asset. He also pored over the works of Beethoven, particularly the late period, as well as Wagner. Yet even though Wagner came later in music history, it was Beethoven that Lekeu referred to as a near-godlike figure. Lekeu often quoted or directly paid homage to Beethoven, specifically his string quartets, in his own work. When Lekeu was 18, he moved to Paris, and there he continued his musical studies, along with an interest in philosophy. His professors recognized his enormous talent, and even more enormous potential, and they looked to help him in any way that they possibly could. His primary composition professor at that time was César Franck, but when Franck passed away, the duty of teaching Lekeu fell to Vincent d'Indy, who was a very polarizing figure in French music for his rather conservative outlook. Nevertheless, even though Lekeu was drawn to more modern pieces than perhaps d'Indy would have liked, Wagner, for instance, as he had attended the Bayreuth Festival in 1889, he still wanted to help the young composer, and it was under d'Indy's tutelage that he went for the prestigious Prix de Rome, and he nabbed second place in 1891. Even though in the coming years the Prix de Rome would turn into a nepotistic popularity contest that would end up contributing to the downfall of the French musical establishment, it still held great sway, and his second place in 1891 propelled him into a broader musical spotlight. Lekeu came to the attention of the remarkable Belgian virtuoso violinist Eugène Ysaÿe, who commissioned a violin sonata from Lekeu. With knowledge of the technical capabilities of the instrument, Lekeu was able to write Ysaÿe's many strengths, and it became a staple in the repertoire soon after its premiere in March of the following year. It seemed as if his star was only rising, but in that very October he ate a bad sorbet, which was unfortunately accidentally typhoid fever flavor, and he succumbed to the illness the day after his 24th birthday. Lekeu was primarily influenced by Franck, not d'Indy, because of his approach to cyclic form, which was a hallmark of Franck's style. The idea being that movements within a particular piece would be connected by motives that are overarching, giving a sense of thematic unity to multiple movements. You see this going back way into the early Romantics, such as pieces of Beethoven, but it was Franck who pursued it with great zeal, and he was one of the first to use it pretty consistently and really kind of obviously within the French tradition. Lekeu really took after this, using it as his teacher had in order to create a sense of thematic unity. Yet Lekeu was equally Wagnerian in his desire to create long and unending melodies. It is fitting that, of his collected works, many of them are melancholy, an emotion he found easier to capture in music than anything else, which perhaps foreshadowed his early demise. Andante and Adagio are found quite a lot in Lekeu's work, and his best work is often tragic in nature. He was doubtless one of the most promising voices of his generation, and music suffered a great loss to its potential with his passing. He wanted a break from a French tradition he saw as messy, and his unfinished works belie an even greater genius than that which is shown in the works he did complete. Amongst these unfinished pieces is a string quartet, which may well have been his magnum opus had he lived to complete it.